Hi, everyone. I hope the energy in the room is good right now. And we are here to talk about luxury. And I think over the last 2 days, we've spoken a lot about it. And I feel like luxury means so many different things. And especially curating luxury experiences means so many different things at different stages of our career. Like Vanda ma'am said yesterday, for her, it's about not missing or not having her cars being delayed because that's true luxury. Time is luxury for her clients, and that's the luxury experience she creates. So I'm not going to waste any time and first introduce my panel. We have someone who speaks luxury, talks luxury, walks luxury. That's SJS Events, Sonal Jaishak. Can we have a little energy in the room? Yes. Okay. And then we have Gul, who creates luxury experiences in Turkey. And we have Bissy from Nigeria, who creates, I would say, international experiences in her domestic sector. So what we're going to do through this conversation is we're going to talk about how to make a luxury brand, what are the do's and don'ts of a luxury brand, how do you try to attract luxury clients with Sonal, and then we're going to talk about Turkey, and all eyes are on Turkey, and how Gul can give us insights in order to create those experiences. And then Bissy is going to talk about domestic sector weddings, and because not every wedding goes outside of your country. So how do you do the same region again and again and try to create bespoke experiences? So, Sonal.
Good morning.
If anyone's followed Sonal's account, Sonal walks in her Dolce & Gabbana, and it's not just the bride, it's also Sonal J. Shah's brand up there. So I want to ask you, Sonal, is there a conscious reason that you project your brand in a certain way? Has that helped you in, attracting high net worth clients? Please share your experiences.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for having me here. And I know Ambika is going to grill me today because she's been warning me for the last couple of weeks. Yeah, of course. I mean, for us, luxury is a very strategic move, right? Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am not from the US. I was born in India. I moved to the US when I was 8. Lower to middle class family. Didn't really know luxury because we were immigrants. Grew up in a very small household. And when I started joining the hospitality management team with Marriott, with Starwood, it was my first introduction to luxury. And what is a luxury client? What does this client expect? What are we supposed to provide? Everything from top to bottom about going above and beyond service. And I think that portion of it really helped me to understand this client's mentality. But also the point was that I kind of had to look in myself and be able to figure out when I started my company, how do I differentiate myself? And, as Indians, my parents have always taught me it's not about what you wear or the handbag you carry, it's about what comes out of your mouth.
No, I completely agree. But why I'm asking you this question is because when you project yourself a certain way on Instagram, it comes with a certain set of I would say good and bad, right? So when you're creating that luxury, when you're walking the walk, is there a reason or a strategy in place to do that?
Correct, of course. So for us, it's really been a growth experience, kind of taking myself out of what my past experiences have been, learning about the luxury market and being able to say, hey, if I want to pursue, everybody says they want to pursue the luxury market, right? But you have to be able to live, breathe, walk luxury. And that was a conscious effort that our company made maybe about 10 years ago. We went to Italy, we met with a stylist, didn't know anything about Italian fashion. It was such an education process for me. Met with Dolce & Gabbana, started working with them, and now everywhere I go, this is what, it's a brand that I represent because I believe in them, but that was also a very conscious effort. So everybody out there that says, I want more luxury clients, I want the big budget clients, but what are you doing yourself in order to project that out there? to that client so that they understand that you speak the same language that they do.
What do you think are like the do's and don'ts? Because like I was talking to Vandana the other day and she's like, I think this is absolute rubbish. Like she said, I dress very modestly and to me it's like about the fact that, you know, the way I conduct myself, my acumen, the way I am able to connect to the heart of the client. And of course, she has 33 plus years of experience. She said, I don't know what you girls are talking about. She's like,
Well, she's Vandana Mohan, right? So she
That's
has
what I told her.
She
She
has
said,
a
"You're Vandana Mohan."
reputation. And she doesn't need to wear Dolce & Gabbana. She has that reputation already. She has the luxury client. She's been doing it for 30 years. So I think that it's very different, the amount of experience that you have and years in the industry and how that kind of evolves. Because if you think about it, even 20 years ago, right, there was no social media. There's no Facebook, there was no Instagram, nobody's watching, nobody cares what you shop, all of these things have really affected our industry, where it's not just about the weddings that you do, but it's who you are and how you are doing these weddings. What do you wear? What does your team wear? The whole glam squad thing that we've been talking about. Like, why is this all so important? Because you're in front of clients and you're in front of guests who they exemplify luxury, and that's what you want yourself and your team to be.
So you were saying about the fact that in one of the panels, people asked you that, you know, how is it that you attract high net worth clients? It's not always about wearing Dolce & Gabbana. I mean, that's just a thing. But like, how do you do your first meeting? Where do you do your first meeting? Is that important? So can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, we do these master classes and one-on-one classes all the time, and I ask the potential person who's working with me, you know, where do you meet someone? They're like, oh, I meet someone at Starbucks. And I'm like, well, you're talking to a luxury event planner, you want to be luxury, why are we meeting at Starbucks? And I think one of the biggest decisions that we made as a company was, I think, year 2, we wanted to get an office space in Manhattan, which is super expensive, right? And for 20 years, we've had the same office space. We've decorated it in a certain way. It's very inviting. But I tell people, this is your first introduction that your client has to you, and why would that be at a Starbucks? And all of us live in, you know, locations where there's luxury hotels. Why aren't we not taking them there? So I think all of those little things go along with how you're projecting yourself, and then the price tag that comes along with your services.
Okay. In your experience, what are the key factors that attract high net worth clients to choose your services over others? Because like, it's New York. There are so many fancy. How is it that you stood out in a market which initially didn't exist like 10 years back and is now growing to where it is today? So what do you think as SJS Events that you offer which makes you stand out? And could you just elaborate on that?
Sure, that's a great question. For us, I think that it's been a way of learning about having a backbone and being able to tell the client, okay, you think you know what you want, I know better what you want, and it's taken me a long time to be able to come to that place in my career. Because let's face it, a couple comes to me or a family comes to me, they have, you know, $1 or $2 million to spend, and they tell me they want to go to Dallas, Texas. I mean, I have nothing against Dallas, Texas. It's a great place. But for me, how do I take that budget and give not only them, but also their guests the most amazing experience? And then I try to talk to the client and say, hey, are you open to other things? Can we explore Europe? Can we explore Paris, Greece, Nice, you know, Tenerife?
Turkey.
Yeah, and it's a
How
matter
can you
of
forget Turkey?
and Turkey, of course, and Turkey, since we're here in Turkey. But it's a matter of educating them, being able to say, okay, you know, you've been to 15 weddings in Dallas, Texas. Let's take your guests someplace else. You know, they're all going to get on a
Is
plane and go
that
someplace.
because you have exclusive relationships? You mentioned yesterday that there are certain exclusive relationships that you have which have made you stand out, right?
Correct. I mean, when we come to conferences like this and meet with all of these amazing venues, you create this one-on-one relationship. And I think that it's really important because you can speak to your clients about these venues that they might not have even been to. And it's those exclusive venue relationship and exclusive creative partner relationships that we have that we really bring to the table that other people don't. Because I think a lot of people are afraid to be confrontational with their client. And I've learned over time, it's not about being confrontational. It's about sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And for us to be able to pitch these ideas.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and just ask you a wrapping question, saying if you can share you were talking about the fact that, in your experience, a client starts with a certain budget, and then it's your job to kind of understand that they're not going to really be happy in what they're going to get with that budget, and how you strategically then figure out a way to hit a chord with them and, increase their budget, which can be a conjecture. Like, I mean, people would say like, oh, that's your client's budget, why would you go? Or why would Sonal, or you would probably get the reputation of, oh, if you go to Sonal, your budget's gonna go into 3 folds, whatever. So
I love that. I love having people know that this is how much they need to spend when they come to us.
So if you can share an experience, maybe, where your client started off somewhere, and if how did you manage to do that, and were they happy in the end?
Well, at the end of the day, our goal as wedding planners is to make our clients look like rock stars in front of their guests. Mm-hmm. And for us, that's such a huge portion of educating our clients, being like, I'm not just telling you this because there's something in it for me. It's really, we want you to be rock stars. You came to us because you want something different. You want something unique. So let us help you create that. And when clients come to us, they have a budget in mind. I don't know where this budget comes from. They're like, my daughter got married 10 years ago, and this is the budget. And I'm like, but 10 years ago, nothing applies today, right? Just like someone else said, not real estate, not fashion. Everything has changed. So it's a matter of educating them. But it's also, for example, I had a dad in Florida. They had an 800-person wedding over 4 days, right? So this is 11 meal functions for 800 people. And it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think that the decor budget that the dad gave me was like $450,000, which in a normal world, $450,000 is a lot of money for decor. But when you're dividing this over 11 events, it's not. It's really not, let's face it. So, mom looked like she was okay. The bride kind of looked a little sad, and the dad's like moping around. So I sat down with the dad. I took just the dad, the person who was paying for the wedding. I took him out to lunch, and I said, what's wrong? Like, we're giving you everything that you want. What's wrong? And he said, Sonal, this doesn't feel like anything different. We have 800 people coming. How do we make this something that's extraordinary? I'm like, well, what is your intention? He's like, I want every single one of these 800 guests to walk away being like, wow, there is no way we're gonna be able to repeat anything that you're doing. And so I looked at him and I said, well, it's the decor budget. I know it's $450,000, but let's have a realistic conversation. And I said, what is the budget? And he looked at me and he said, what is the budget? And, before, like, the younger me would be like, it's 1.2, and, I would kind of go like this. But now, the older me, I'm like, it's 1.2. We need to spend 1.2 just on decor.
And did he take it?
And he did it. This is what it's going to take. This is the look you want. This is the wow factor that you're going to bring. And it's just having that very transparent conversation with your clients.
That's great. So I think takeaway points from whatever Sonal said is, please know where to conduct your first meeting. It is you who's representing your brand. It is okay to throw a figure that comes out of knowledge, that for a client with that kind of background, this is the kind of budget that will suit them, and it takes time to get confident to be able to quote those things, and I think knowledge helps, right?
Absolutely, and that dad at the end of that wedding came up to me and said, I love you, this was the best decision I've ever made. And I'm like, thank you for trusting me with this budget and for what I'm telling you, right? Because at the end of the day, all those 800 people came to the dad saying this is unreal, unbelievable, and he's the one that I wanted to make look like the rock star.
That's fab. And maybe the Dolce & Gabbana helped in selling the 1.2. But okay, let's go on to Gul from Turkey. And Gul, all eyes are on Turkey. I did a beautiful wedding in Lujo last year. And I feel like everyone's here experiencing Turkey. We've experienced Lujo, which is fabulous, barring the power fluctuations, which we're going to let go of. But I'm just saying that, there is so much that Turkey has to offer. And what would you suggest for someone who is here right now in the room, and if they had to create a bespoke luxury experience in Turkey, can you tell 3 things off your head that we could probably do or experience in Turkey which would create that luxury segment?
Of course. Hello, everyone, first of all. I would like to say that I'm very happy to see all of you here in Turkey and would like to see again with your unbreathing designs. As you know, Turkey is the only country in the world on the map that connects 2 continents, which means where West meets East, Europe connects to Europe, Asia. Because of that, we offer as a country different opportunities and luxury standards to all the planners, all the couples that would like to have their events and weddings in Turkey. Turkey has a very wedding sector in Turkey is very wide, and Turkey has different regions, and each of them gives has different characteristics, such as culture, nature, gastronomy, elegancy, and hospitality. We are very strong in hospitality. We are very strong with our destinations, selective destinations, and we are also very strong with our gastronomy. So whoever wants to plan, and it's very easy to incorporate a luxury wedding that would be uniquely Turkish. So, you can have, when you are come here, you can easily experience differences. You can easily experience different points of Turkey. For example, if I give you some examples, if you are planning to have a wedding or events in Istanbul, you can experience how the sultans and Ottoman Empire sultans used to live. So why shouldn't you miss that? If you have that chance, why you should miss that chance of feeling like the sultans used to have? So it's a big chance, and we have many palaces, many historical places in Istanbul, and we have the pearl of the world, Bosphorus. I believe you cannot find it somewhere else. And on the other hand, if you want to live another experience, if you want to be more luxury but different style, you can go to the Turkish Riviera. So we are in our actually Bodrum, Göcek. We can go to Antalya. So all those places, or Fethiye, we are very rich with our luxury hotels and venues, let's say.
I would just say that, if you can guide us on, how to select the right window, because I think one of the things that I experienced when I was doing a wedding here was that it was really hard there was a plethora of vendors, and it was harder to select who is the right person to represent my brand, right? Because there's a certain level of decor that I do, and I'm representing myself, and you need the right partner, and especially in a country where English is not as fluent. So what would be your top recommendations? Would you recommend going with the DMC, not with the DMC? Just your thoughts on that.
Actually, as mentioned, Turkey is in the wedding sector in Turkey is very wide. So we have very good in local manufacture. We have variety of suppliers in all the fields, in flowers, in furnitures, whatever is needed for the events. And we also have very good wedding professionals, because it's upcoming sector and we are very strong at. But I definitely and honestly suggest you to go with the very well experienced Turkish, not local, not maybe Turkish, local partner, and to take her or him at your behind and go with them, because as we are locals, we know what are the disadvantages and advantages of the vendors, we know which are the best ones and which ones will will demand your expectations, because we, as a local planners, should provide you the same luxury standards that you promised your own customers in terms of service and in terms of product. So we should feed you, and you should be more successful in the eyes of your customers. So
Do you recommend that you should go through a DMC?
definitely, 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 definitely.
I
It's
think
a
I
must.
agree with you because I feel like when we were in a situation, the people who helped us the most was the local DMC. They understood our brand. They understood what we were trying to create. For those of you who were in my workshop yesterday, it was a large-scale project.
We should, I'm sorry. We should be at the same page with you. So we should understand each other, because all these weddings and events, let's say, are like a theaters without any rehearsal. Of course, we can have the flower rehearsal, furnitures, we can prepare timelines, and everything is doable, and we all do it. But we never know what is expecting us during the flow of the event. As everything can happen, so we should be, because you are foreigners, you don't know situations, you don't know what's going on. So we should be able to correct or to solve all the mistakes and mishaps that without letting you. So it will be easier life, and you will be more successful on the eyes of your clients.
But what are the 3 important questions to ask the vendors that the DMC is providing to you? Of course, there are going to be, say, 5 vendors the DMC brings to you saying, you know, these people, say one person is from Antalya, one person is from Istanbul, the other person is based out of somewhere else. So now, when you're selecting your vendor, what do you think are the 3 key questions for someone who's planning from outside to ask to know that this vendor is the right person for them, especially in Turkey?
Okay, yes, that's important. Actually, first, maybe you would see can ask their experience list, what are the recommendations. You should definitely have the contract. That's the must, because it protects both sides, them and yours, both of them. And you should go through to the vendors that you find through the DMCs or wedding planners or local planners suggest you. That's very important, because in this case, they also take the responsibility. They know them very well, so if something happens, they are on their top, so they can control. This is how it works in Turkey. So they're on that top, and they can control them. It's very important, but contract is a must as well.
I think that's really important. I think Gul specified something really important. You need to have contracts with the local vendors. Are they willing to do a contract with you? Do they have an English-speaking person? I think in my personal experience, it was so important that my decor team, were they going to be able to communicate? I was so lucky that finally the production team we worked out with not only had an English-speaking person, but also had a Hindi-speaking person, and made life so much easier because, and that was a key for selecting, because I feel not the Hindi part, but the English part, like, you know, because at the end of the day, if I can't communicate to you, and I have only my DMC who is just not going to be there through every meeting, right? It is important, and it's also for people to note in their local destinations, it is important to speak a global language. Fortunately, unfortunately, we have English, which connects all of us, and it is important to ask that question while selecting a vendor and choosing a luxury partner,
Actually,
for sure.
Honestly, because I work with many selected wedding planners from all around the world, so this is all the feedbacks that I get from them, that we are very good in manufacturing and we are very fast as a labor, while our labor force is very good. So since we had the best destination, because each of destination is precious, so while we are having the westernized experience and the technical tools, there is no reason that you cannot have the success. But the most important, to pick the correct ones and to go with the correct planners. With the good planning, everything can be done perfectly.
No, I agree completely. And I feel like Turkey, another thing I feel like if you can specify, what is the best time to do weddings in Turkey? Because I feel like when we did the wedding in April, I had a windstorm.
There is no best time for Turkey. Every time is best
the
time.
client got a great deal because we opened Lujo. It was off-season, and it was a complete buyout. We had Titanic as well, and we were like 400 crew, 700 guests. So from an overall budget perspective, the off-season was great till we had the wedding day at the beach, and my mandap was flying. And And I'm like, dude, I've dealt with rain, I've dealt with a lot of things, but not wind. So I think like if you could specify like, how to select the right destination at the right time and what would be the ideal time, and then we can wrap up, with some key points from you.
Actually, I believe there is no best time for the weddings here because we have 4 seasons, and we have different regions, and in different regions, in each season is in season for the weddings. So in this part, when you come, especially during the summertime, maybe Turkish Riviera is the best season because you guys who want to have outdoor weddings. It might be best season, Bodrum, Çeşme, Aegean side, Antalya, Alanya, Fethiye. But if you come also in the summertime or wintertime or spring or autumn, you can go to Cappadocia. So because Cappadocia is I believe is the one of life experience city on the earth because it's like a fairy tale. When you go there, as you are living in the fairy tale, it's not normal city. So they have mystic atmosphere, they have cave rooms. But meanwhile, you can also have dusk dance parties on the hills till morning. So it's the place of the contradictions. So you can feel all the luxuries while you couldn't even think about. And also if you come to Istanbul, there is no high season or in season. So because you have palaces, we have, as you all know, we have Esma, we have Kempinski, Chiran, so we have different palaces. They are used to be real palaces. So you can experience either outside or inside. So this is unique, and you cannot find it somewhere else. So I think it all depends what clients, of course, ask from you. But Turkey, we provide you different alternatives and options.
Okay, thank you so much, Gul. I think Gul's brought up some really important points. Selecting your vendors through contracts, ask them if they have a person speaking
Definitely.
English. The terrain is large and you have to select it based on the right climate, but Turkey has a vast terrain to go for, and all eyes are on Turkey, and we're hoping that we get to work with you too. And moving on to now, Bissy. Bissy, your brand is known for luxury in your country, in Nigeria. And like most of us over here, the largest chunk of weddings that everybody does, mostly, is in their country. Not every wedding goes outside of your country. And how do you tend to make interesting experiences, or you've made your brand stand out while you might be having the same venues repeatedly, and you have to create different experiences? So what made you stand out as a brand, and what do you practice?
Okay, so for me, I would say, first of all, that the look and feel of the event is very key to describe that luxurious experience. So I'll just take it from 3 points. The first point is the decor. So in terms of the elements, what we have done is to fuse in, we have what we call the Ankara fabrics, the local fabrics. We do table runners. We have the sashes, the bows at the back of the chairs. These are the local elements fused into the design. The other thing is style inspiration. So for our brides, we do the hand-woven fabrics. Like what I'm wearing right now, it's woven by hand, proudly Nigeria. It's called Ashoke. So for the brides, rather than doing the regular Iro and Buba, like what we do in the traditional, they can use it to sew a style like a dress, like what I'm wearing as the bride, or the sister of the bride, or the mother of the bride. They use it to sew English-styled outfits. So in terms of the style inspiration, the fusing the culture, the tradition of Nigeria, of Africa, but still having that international look and feel. The other aspect is the music and entertainment. So in this event that we try to portray, we still have our African troops do the dance in the English wedding and reception party without taking the personality of the client in the event.
Okay. That's great. And I mean, like, do you tend to bring global experiences to your weddings? Like, do you think what do you strategize so that your client doesn't feel they're losing out by not going out? Because there's so many reasons why people do domestic weddings. It's not that their budgets are low. It's because maybe their maximum guests are there and it's easy for them to flow down sometimes. So there are so many reasons why people do weddings in a grand way in their own country. So like, do you strategize global trends and do you infuse that and do you think that helps?
Oh, yes, the global trends. So, first of all, continuous research is important. And so every now and then we go online, check what our international counterparts are doing. So like what we have here, there are a lot of inspirations that I've already gotten from here, listening to her, checking her pages. So what the things we see our counterparts do abroad, we fuse them back in Nigeria. We ensure that experiences is still created even within our local environment. So the key thing in terms of inspiration, in terms of the innovation is to see what our counterparts are doing and introduce them to our clients, ensure that their personality is still revealed, because again, you, the planner, you're trying to sell the concepts and the ideas of what you have seen your other colleagues outside do, but you can't take away their personality. So this is how you walk through with them to ensure that they see the vision that you have for them, they get the buy-in, and then we're able to interpret it in their events.
That's amazing. So
Thank you.
I feel like a lot of weddings have now also started coming to your country. Like I think in the last 1 or 2 years, I hear a lot of Indian weddings happening there as well. And a lot of couples from there are coming, to India. Like what do you think is the key attraction in your country or what it can offer and maybe the do's and don'ts of that?
I didn't get that clearly.
What are the key factors or the key things that are attractive in your country, or why do you think that suddenly there is a surge of weddings in Nigeria and even from those coming from outside?
So for me, I would say that first of all, in Nigeria as a country, we have beautiful places. So in terms of sophisticated locations, so like this book I'm holding right now, I just published it. It has exotic destinations in Nigeria, talking about architecture, talking about the beautiful views, a lot of views in Nigeria. So people coming in, either Nigerians based in diaspora or other continents who come in to do events in Nigeria, they have beautiful places. So we, the planners, show them these exotic places. Either you want to do it at the beach, you want to do it in the garden, you can do it in Nigeria, proudly Nigerian, but we'll still match up the standard anywhere in the world. Then great food. Nigerians, they call it the jollof rice, the jollof, the food. So of course, these are part of the touch points of Nigeria that anywhere we go, we say this is proudly Nigeria, but we still ensure that every other thing that gives that global feel, that international feel, that luxurious feel is there. So things like attention to details, personalized things is still fusing. But we ensure that the location we're using already, when you come in on arrival, you already see and feel, oh, I'm having a destination wedding, I'm having a destination event in Nigeria without taking out the shine. Thank you.
That's amazing. So, Bissy, just to wrap up whatever you're saying, I just wanted to understand that we have a lot of representation from Nigeria this time, and I saw the girls dancing here. It was amazing. I think one of the things, I loved how, nobody was here. I was practicing my workshop, and there was a group of women singing and dancing, and Rishi and all of us were just saying, like, you guys have insane energy.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why we all love, going there. And I just feel like, do you feel like with so many people who are doing so well in your country, did you use a PR agency? Did you do anything did you use a PR agency, or did you use strategies on social media to make sure your brand stands out and speaks for yourself?
Oh yes, so it's a mix. So for me as a brand, either BC Shotunde as a thought leader, as a personal brand, and BZB Events Nigeria as a corporate brand, the things first of all is coming for international trainings like this. Because for me, I've been in the industry for 15 years now, and the things that stands me out is I'm always yearning for knowledge. I'm always looking to be at par with my international counterparts. So I'm not just a local player or a local champion. I'm looking at what is the next thing. So I would say that continuous research, consistent trainings and workshops, attending EWPC and other conferences helps you to scale up, helps you to match up, gives you that exposure. So your creative thinking is very important. When you learn some of these things, you go back and you get to implement. For me as a brand, we do strategy sessions in my office every Monday. So when I go back now, the next thing is, this is what I have learned. How do we implement in our business? How do we get our clients to get that buy-in? We're coming out with something fresh. So it's important that continuous research is important. Training and workshop is important. Going online, and then of course networking. I've met beautiful ladies already, so definitely I'm going back and I'm going to impact. I do conference as well in Nigeria every November, and I bring in speakers as well. So some of the things that we go back to impact by paying it forward is to also encourage people to invest in training, personal and business development. On the aspect of the PR, yes, I work with PR agencies, press, TV, radio, online, but I'm very strong on Instagram, on social media, and I would say it has actually influenced the growth of my brand and what it is today. And thank you to EWPC for giving me this platform.
Thank you to you
Thank
ladies
you.
for
Yes.
that amazing, so many amazing points and key things to take away. I think we just finished in time. But I think points from Bissy is that not all weddings are going to go outside of your country. Research, making sure that you're using PR. Please use PR agencies. It is important. I would say first your work stands out, but then once your work is established, it's only after that that you should get a PR agency, and then like put your brand out there, collaborate in the fashion space, collaborate and do different things so that your brand speaks different languages and caters to a larger demographic. And with that, I will say thank you for being a patient audience. And it was my first moderating session on an international panel. So sorry if I made a mistake, but we're open for questions, if any.
Hi, Ambika. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful moderation, and thank you to the speakers, Gul, Sonal, and Bissy. That was amazing knowledge. My name is Hasnain Nurani. I'm from Kenya. We have a chain of hotels and a destination management company. My question is, and maybe this perhaps applies to majority of the bespoke event organizers. Whilst I agree, majority of the events are held locally within your own country, but there's very many clients who prefer doing destination weddings. Now, when a client, or when you have a client who approaches you for a destination wedding, and let's say he doesn't know, or he or she doesn't know exactly which particular location are they looking at, how do you suggest to the client, or how do you come about to suggest which is the best location for them? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that, because what I see is Africa in general has a very little showcase. A majority of these destination weddings are happening within maybe like Europe or Middle Eastern areas. But Africa, and I'm sure that my African brothers and sisters here will agree to that. A lot of event organizers haven't been able to experience Africa in general, while Africa has some very luxury and wild and virgin experiences. How do you go about suggesting that, and how can we bring about spotlight within Africa itself, like Nigeria or
Is that
Kenya?
question to Bissy?
No, generally perhaps to
So
anyone.
your question is that how do you suggest a location
Yes.
to people when they're confused? Is that what?
Yes, that for
Sonal,
destination
would you want to
weddings.
take it up?
Let me
Yeah,
say, okay.
I can go ahead and answer that. So for us, I mean, you know, coming to a place like Nigeria or Kenya, I've never been there before. So the first thing I do is partner up with someone who's local, right? That's the number one thing. And then we try to educate ourselves first before we can go to the client and pitch any destination to them. So I would really suggest to someone, you know, fam trips are great. You know, if you're a wedding planner in Nigeria, Kenya, wherever, and you want to be able to bring more weddings to your region, be able to do a fam, showcase to us what are these luxury properties, because we have to kind of experience it ourselves in order to go back and say, hey, this is what we experience and this is what our clients can get. So that's number one. And number two, I think that it's really important for everybody in here that if you're trying to plan a wedding in a destination you've never been to, the first thing I do is look up the the wedding planners that are in that region and try to have these creative partnerships. Because there's no way that I would be able to plan those weddings on my own if I didn't have someone local on the ground.
Okay, in addition to what she has said, I think first of all is getting the word out there. So I'm glad that Pride Inn Hotels is exhibiting here at EWPC. The first step, and I must comment that that's the great step. I was at your stand yesterday, I met with John, and I said when I go back, I would connect to be able to take the word out there. I had a retreat in Ghana 2 years ago. I took my Nigerian colleagues out there. So the first thing is put the word out there. What you're doing already in EWPC is a great one. Take pictures, promote your hotel, promote your resort. The people you have met here now, send them an email to say if you have anything in Africa, Kenya is a destination of choice. These are the packages we have to offer. Like for me, I bet this idea in February. When I knew I was coming to EWPC, I got the idea and I featured quite a lot of destination events in Nigeria, and I have been giving it out to people that I've seen. So that's another way of spreading the word. Then collaboration, like she said, partnerships, and but leverage a lot on social media. I think it will go a long way. Farm trip, like she said, is also a great one. I know people like Abu Dhabi Rasa Kema do a lot of all of that. So I think you can take a cue and see how to work even with wedding influencers so that they put the word out there. They tag Pride Inn, and before you know it, there's a ripple effect. People check you out and say, oh, what's going on? And that's just it. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be looking to work with you on African destinations.
There you go. There's a collaboration happening right there. Can we have the other question?
Ladies, I'm going to have to cut you short. We're going to have to chase the clocks. I'm so sorry, but I do encourage those who have some questions to approach the ladies during the break.
There are two questions.
Yeah, we're going to have to take these questions
Okay,
offline.
can you take the question okay, he's standing, he's literally putting
He's
his
been
hand.
standing.
No, I'm going to encourage you to speak to the ladies afterwards. Sorry, I'll have to be the chaser of the clock, so we stay on touch with the masterclass. But ladies and gentlemen, please can we give the ladies a big round of applause?